Hello, my name is Justin Brown. I am the founder and lead investigator of Interface Death, and I research things of paranormal nature. And this is another episode of Spirit Mechanics, and I would love to sit here for hours and talk to you about my ideas and concepts of understanding paranormal phenomena. But I'm going to try just to do 10-minute videos at a time when I have time to do it, and when I have an idea of how I want to convey my ideas using certain principles. Today, in this video, the principles are going to be both scientific and derived from metaphysics. So, with that being said, I'm going to let you in on some ideas that I've been working on when it comes to understanding dimensions and ghosts, disembodied consciousness, spirits, whatever you want to call them. How does the consciousness exist in the form of a soul or separate from the body? Do they exist in another dimension or our dimension? Do they vibrate at a higher frequency than we do? All these questions have some, possibility of being answered through some, principles of physics, quantum physics, and some of it has to do with just metaphysics, because consciousness really is still mystifying when it comes to physics. We have a lot of problems integrating, consciousness into physics. We know that it's, a primary component, but we just can't quantify the consciousness variable. So you ask yourself, how can spirits intelligently communicate with you if you're dealing with an intelligent entity? Well, that's very hard to understand. What we can first try to understand is, how is it even possible to see spirits and ghosts or things that are not supposed to be there? Well, one thing I want to talk to you about during this episode of Spirit Mechanics is space and time, and dimensions beyond the fourth dimension, which is time. Everybody thinks that we live in a three-dimensional world and universe, which is incorrect. We live in a four-dimensional, and the fourth dimension is time. Now, people want to think that dimensions are partitioned somehow, and I get the feeling that people generally believe that, when people start talking about other dimensions, they're partitioned and separate from what we perceive as a dimension, and that's incorrect. All dimensions coexist in the same space. There's just certain aspects and ways to perceive those dimensions and to, actually be in those dimensions. We are in other dimensions, but we can't perceive them. And that's what I want to try to convey in this video. When it comes to time, our perception of time in a certain conscious state, which is the normal waking state we're all familiar with, is linear. You cannot go into the past, everything is in the present, and you cannot go into the future. You have to live each moment in time as it happens. And that's how you're conscious of it. Well, there's other forms of consciousness out there. Other people are aware of the forms of subconscious, which are dreams, and a lot of research that are done on dreams is slowly picking up, but it's still mysterious. And you ask, what do dreams have to do with understanding the paranormal? Which, in my understanding and belief, a lot. Okay? The reason why time is different in the dream state or the subconscious state is it's no longer linear. Everybody knows if you fall asleep and wake up, that time while you're dreaming, or we're aware that you're dreaming, time goes out the window. And it's like that when you're passed on or dead or in a different state of mind or a subconscious state of mind. with that being said, time, you can consider it as how we're able to perceive it in certain dimensions. I believe that the mind can perceive other dimensions outside of time while they're awake. It's just hard to understand. I believe that once you start telling people and teaching people that things that's happened in the past don't disappear, it's still here. We just can't perceive it in the normal conscious state. Physics tells us that things that happened in the past and will happen in the future have already happened on a subatomic level. Subatomic interactions happen at a fast rate that we cannot perceive. I mean, if you look at a space of absolutely nothing, like in the vacuum, there's so many, foams of quantum activity that phase in and out and happen so quickly that we don't even know they're there. So, when just take this video for example, the fact that I'm doing it is always going to be in existence, except in our conscious state. Now, when you have other factors played in, this event can happen to somebody else's present, but in my past. So with that being said, every day, people are actually seeing things in my past, but they're present. They just can't perceive it. Take light, for example. The amount of time for the light to bounce off me and hit your eyes and be determined, through your brain and interpreted by your brain takes a certain amount of time. It's very quick when compared to how we perceive time. But in fact, everything that you see is happening in your present, but their past. So if you take large distances and factor that in, you can actually see that past and present aren't gone. They're still there, and it's already happened. We can only see it and perceive it in a certain fashion, which happens to be linear. Okay? So when you start talking about ghosts, you can think about stone tape theory, how it tries to say things are stored into environment. Well, you can just say, and the way I like to think of it, things that's happened is still happening, and it's still there, but not in our normal sense of time. But I believe that you can tap in to the past or the future using different states of consciousness that you may or may not be aware of. Some people call it being psychic, intuitive, telepathic, whatever you want to say. There's a lot of belief out there that everything is not actually what it seems. Now, is time an illusion? You could say it is, or you could just say it's just a form of consciousness. I know a lot of people like to throw around the word illusion. It's not actually what it is. Well, it is what it looks like, but there's a reason why there is things that that are perceived the way they are, but they can be perceived differently, because the main reason behind everything that we see and live through is made to exist because everything that can and wants to exist will. So the infinite possibility of everything has to occur. Now, going back to the dimension mechanics, when you see a ghost, you actually have to see light bounce off of it and enter your eye. That's the scientific mechanic we're familiar with. But I believe that time travel for light, seeing things in a different time, there's some kind of arc or passageway that allows you to perceive that without the light actually hitting it in your present time. Now that can be tricky. Trying to pin down the exact physics of how that's possible is the conundrum. We really don't know, or I personally don't know how that's possible. Some people out there think that they're portals and wormholes opening up. I think that's a cool idea, but there's certain things that are problems when you try to tie scientific or theoretical physics trying to use that to explain paranormal phenomena works into some degree, but when you're dealing with things that are high energy, deal with radiation that's very lethal to human tissue, so on and so forth, you have to look for things that will allow portals and allow those type of paranormal things to occur without injury to the body. So you can't have an Einstein-Rosen bridge event happen next to you where a ghost comes through and not kill you. So it can't be a wormhole per se. It resemble a wormhole, but there's got to be a different mechanic. Okay. So with that being said, in this video, I want you guys to really start understanding how physics that we've known for 100 years can intersect with understanding paranormal phenomena. The understanding of knowing that the past is not gone and the future is not reachable. That's all false. Okay? Deja vu. Mysterious, right? Well, I believe that deja vu is just evidence that you can use to prove that you've already been somewhere. Okay? It's not just a trick. Your brain doesn't just automatically, you can't just assume that your brain just said, oops, I made a mistake, my memory messed up. No, I don't believe that. I believe that when you have deja vu, that's you realizing that you've been there. Okay? So, with that being said, deja vu can be understood and described by being aware of an event before you were there and in a certain state of consciousness. Now, when you dream something first and then go there, that's good evidence to me. I mean, all the anecdotal evidence that people report that say they've dreamt something and then experienced it in a wake state or a conscious state is evidence. Okay, it's not physical evidence, but it's supporting evidence, and we have to look at supporting evidence because everything that's been inferred and eventually proven as a theory universally in the scientific field has started with anecdotal evidence, and once it's been field researched, they find an experimental way to experiment with the theory to prove it. I mean, look at the general relativity, how long it took to get that established. Well, it took a long time, and they had to play with the mathematics to make it work. Now, is the theory of relativity going to last forever? No, there's going to be something come along and say it's untrue, but certain components of it are true. Okay, so the same thing can be said about Newtonian physics and general relativity. It's like leap stones in understanding a general consensus of understanding what's taught, what's generally believed is real. All that will go through a process of leaps. Sometimes there's setbacks, depending on where you live and what time span you live in. But information is definitely controlled when it comes to education and how people can get access to what they need to know. But all the information that we need to know is there. It's just interpreting it correctly. So, can we get in contact with spirits? First, we have to realize what spirits are. We could be talking to somebody in a different time, in a different dimension. Now, I believe that's possible, and I have evidence that supports that. Voices saying the same things we are saying. They're trying to make contact with us at the same time we're trying to make contact with them. Sometimes you believe that you're getting messages from spirits who died, and you want to try to prove that. You want to try to establish intelligence and establish that they're intelligently communicating with you in your time span. Now, we can talk to great lengths about time and the stream of time. Is there a time stream? Is there little streams that go off of the main time stream and all that stuff? Okay. But I'm trying to make this video condensed. When it comes to time, the different dimensions above and below time varies, okay? It's very complicated to understand, but we need to realize that different times can come together. Different dimensions coexist and can come together. Maybe it's not a portal to another place, but it's a way to perceive a place that is coexisting with our own. Okay, you follow? If you do follow, you will understand that how psychics can sense things, how, people who have metaphysical abilities can do what they do. Now, a lot of people think that's just over imagination, horse crap, whatever you want to say, but I do believe that people do possess the ability to sense things that are beyond what we normally think that we can sense. When it comes to time, dimension, and space, and people who are no longer living. Now, is life an illusion? Yes. Is death an illusion? Yes. You can say it's an illusion, you can say it's a state of consciousness and perception, you can say all those things. But our pursuit of truth when it comes to life and death can seem mysterious because it's not black and white. You can't tie it down. It seems like the more you open your mind to the possibility of life extending beyond death, and the more you open your mind to the possibility of entities who are not normally here can interact with us. All that is one really cool aspect about time that most people don't know and realize is that time operates on different speeds and levels even in our dimension. And real quick, a lesson about time. One of the mechanics about time is in our satellites, our GPS tracking satellites, they have clocks on them. And they have to run faster than the clocks on Earth just to keep in sync with the time on Earth, because as the further you get away from Earth, when you have a clock, time goes quicker. So if you were off in the middle of a space really far away from Earth, your time would seem like it would go by normal, but in relation to our time on Earth, you would be going through time way quicker. So in essence, you can travel through time even in our own dimension. So it's very weird how that can be true. Okay, it's hard for people to understand that if you leave our solar system and come back, you're effectively traveling forward in time. So it's in my belief that you can be in different dimensions. There's different types of dimensions. I believe that there's outer dimensions, inner dimensions. I believe that there's higher dimensions, lower dimensions. And I believe that when you pass from this dimension, or whatever you want to say, consciousness, you may not go into the same dimension as others go. You may get stuck in a transient plane. You may get stuck on some kind in between this dimension and another dimension. There may be in-betweens that you get stuck. I have no idea about that, but there seems like there is supporting evidence of earthbound spirits that are able to influence the environment much more than others. They come across devices louder. Their capability of communicating is better. And there's just so much evidence that supports that there are things that coexist more than others do. So I just want to give different possibilities outside the box when, I'm going about my business in the paranormal field. I believe that we will discover that everything is right next to us, happening right here where we are. It's not in another, far off fairy tale land or dimension. It's right here happening. Everything that's happened, where you used to live, even after you die, you will still be there. And people can go back and somehow tap into that. And that is where I'm focusing my efforts in the field. How is that possible? Is it metaphysical or physical? Well, so far it's looking metaphysical. There's no scientific approach to it that you can provide tangible physical evidence to prove how you are able to yourself experience something paranormal, but others in a group can experience all the same thing. And how is that possible? If it's a psychic event, how is it happening for all of those people? Okay, so you have to ask yourself if it's environmental, or if we're all interconnected with the event somehow, either psychically or physically. So many questions, that I try to answer, but I'd like to get feedback on this. So when it comes to time, it's not, the past and the future is definitely reachable, and you can connect with it. And it involves things that are already understood about the aspects of the physics. When it comes to space, portals to other places, maybe, but more likely, in my opinion, that it's just already a plane coexisting. It's just phased out either due to the vibration of it, or just the characteristics of its being. Is it able to perceive things in a higher dimension? Okay, so if that's the case, then it's right here, but we can't see it, but it can see us. Okay, and that's going to be very hard to understand. But there are things out there that are watching us right now. You could say guardian angels, demons, angels, God, Satan, whatever. We are influenced and affected by supernatural things. Hard to prove, but I think that once we are able to connect spirit and science together, it will become more clear and evident that not everything is as it appears. Death is not the end. Until the next episode, see you later.